Welcome to IELTS CELPIP Master Prep, your trusted source for real exam-based practice tests. Every test you see here is inspired by current exam trends, and each one comes with full model solutions to help you master every section. Here's our daily schedule. IELTS tests drop every morning at 7:30 a.m. Eastern, and CLP tests every evening at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. No matter which exam you're preparing for, we've got you covered every single day. Are you ready for today's test? Give it your best shot and comment your score. The top 5 scorers will be featured in our monthly Achievers newsletter and awards. Want your name included? Let's begin.
What advice would you give this newcomer about the best ways to improve their English while living in Canada? Begin speaking now.
I think the best way to improve your English is to practice every day. First, you should try to talk with your neighbors and coworkers in English as much as possible. Also, I suggest you watch Canadian TV shows because they help with listening skills. You can join free English classes at the local library too. Many cities in Canada have conversation circles where newcomers meet and practice together. Reading English newspapers like the Toronto Star is also helpful. If you do these things regularly, your English will get better quickly.
I'd strongly recommend a few strategies that really work well for newcomers in Canada. To begin with, immersing yourself in English daily is essential, so try speaking with colleagues and neighbors rather than switching to your first language. Additionally, registering for the free LINK program would be incredibly beneficial since it's government-funded and designed specifically for immigrants. I'd also suggest volunteering at a local community center, which gives you natural conversation practice in a relaxed setting. Watching CBC News regularly will help you pick up Canadian expressions and current events simultaneously. Furthermore, using language exchange apps to find a conversation partner can accelerate your progress significantly. Consistency is truly the key to rapid improvement.
That's a fantastic question, and I'd be happy to share some strategies that have proven remarkably effective for newcomers across Canada. First and foremost, I'd encourage you to enroll in the LINK program, which is a federally funded initiative offering free language instruction tailored specifically to immigrants' needs, including workplace communication modules. Beyond formal classes, however, the real breakthrough comes from authentic daily immersion. I'd suggest volunteering with organizations like Habitat for Humanity or your local food bank, where you'll engage in meaningful conversations that build both fluency and cultural understanding. Additionally, joining a recreational sports league or community book club creates organic opportunities to practice idiomatic Canadian English in a pressure-free environment. Supplementing these activities with Canadian media, particularly CBC podcasts and local newspapers, will sharpen your comprehension of regional expressions. Ultimately, the combination of structured learning and genuine social engagement produces the most dramatic and lasting results.
How would you respond to this person who is resistant to your advice about improving their English in Canada? Begin speaking now.
I understand you feel that way, but I think translation apps are not enough by themselves. They can help sometimes, but they won't teach you how to have real conversations with people. In Canada, many jobs need good speaking skills, and apps can't help with that. I'm not saying apps are bad, but classes and real practice are also important. Maybe you could try a conversation circle just once to see if you like it. I just want to help you because I know it's hard to learn a new language.
I completely understand your frustration, and I respect that translation apps have been useful for you so far. However, I'd like you to consider something important. While apps are convenient for quick translations, they can't help you develop the natural speaking rhythm and cultural awareness that Canadian employers and communities expect. For instance, imagine a job interview where you need to respond spontaneously. No app can prepare you for that kind of real-time interaction. I'm not suggesting you abandon your apps entirely, but rather that you complement them with conversation practice. What if you attended just one free link class with me next week? There's absolutely no commitment required, and you might be pleasantly surprised by how practical and enjoyable it is. I genuinely want to see you succeed here.
I genuinely appreciate your honesty, and I can see why translation apps feel like a practical solution. They're immediate and convenient, and there's no denying their usefulness for certain situations. However, I'd respectfully challenge the notion that they're sufficient on their own for achieving true fluency. Consider this: language acquisition research consistently demonstrates that meaningful human interaction is irreplaceable when it comes to developing conversational competence, understanding cultural nuances, and building the confidence needed for professional environments. In a Canadian workplace, for example, you'll encounter idiomatic expressions, workplace humor, and collaborative discussions that simply cannot be replicated through any application. Rather than viewing classes as a replacement for your current approach, perhaps think of them as a powerful complement. Here's what I'd propose: accompany me to a single conversation circle at the Mississauga Library this Saturday. It's completely informal, entirely free, and populated by people in exactly your situation. If it doesn't resonate with you, I'll never bring it up again, but I suspect you'll find the experience far more valuable than you anticipate.
Describe what you see happening at this neighborhood street market in as much detail as possible. Begin speaking now.
In this picture, I can see a busy street market on a sunny day. There are many vendor stalls on both sides of the street selling different things. On the left side, a woman is selling fresh fruits and vegetables, and some customers are looking at her products. In the middle, there is a food truck where people are waiting in line. On the right, I can see a man selling flowers. Many shoppers are walking around carrying bags. Some children are eating ice cream near a bench. The market looks very busy and everyone seems happy and relaxed.
This vibrant scene captures a bustling neighborhood street market on what appears to be a beautiful spring afternoon. Along the left side of the street, several vendors have set up colorful canopy tents displaying an impressive array of fresh produce, including strawberries, asparagus, and leafy greens that are clearly locally sourced. In the foreground, an elderly couple is carefully selecting tomatoes while chatting warmly with the vendor. Toward the center, a popular food truck is drawing a considerable lineup of hungry shoppers eager to grab a bite. On the right-hand side, an artisan is showcasing handcrafted jewelry, and a young woman is holding up a necklace admiringly. In the background, families with strollers are meandering between stalls, and a street musician with a guitar is entertaining passers-by. The entire atmosphere radiates a wonderful sense of community and springtime energy.
This captivating scene depicts a thriving neighborhood street market that perfectly encapsulates the multicultural vibrancy of a Canadian community on a glorious spring afternoon. Dominating the left portion of the frame, a series of neatly arranged vendor stalls beneath striped canvas awnings showcase an abundant selection of seasonal produce, vibrant red strawberries, bundles of fresh asparagus, and aromatic herbs, suggesting a farm-to-table orientation that's become increasingly popular across Canadian cities. In the immediate foreground, a middle-aged vendor is animatedly engaging with a young family, gesturing enthusiastically toward her organic honey display while the children peer curiously at the golden jars. The central thoroughfare is alive with a diverse cross-section of shoppers, an elderly gentleman navigating carefully with a wheeled cart, a group of teenagers sharing poutine from a nearby food truck, and a couple photographing artisanal baked goods at an adjacent stall. Along the right margin, an indigenous artisan is meticulously arranging beadwork and dream catchers, drawing admiring glances from several onlookers. The background reveals a street musician whose acoustic guitar melodies drift over the cheerful hum of conversation, tying the entire scene together with an unmistakable warmth.
What do you predict will happen to fuel stations and auto mechanics in Canada as electric vehicles become more common, and why? Begin speaking now.
I think electric vehicles will change a lot of things in Canada. First, I predict that many gas stations will close because fewer people will need gasoline. Some gas stations might add electric charging stations to stay open. Also, mechanics will need to learn new skills because electric cars are very different from regular cars. There will probably be fewer oil change shops because electric vehicles don't use oil the same way. However, I think this change will happen slowly, so people will have time to adjust. Overall, it will be a big change for the car industry in Canada.
I believe the rise of electric vehicles will fundamentally reshape Canada's automotive landscape over the coming decade. Regarding fuel stations, I predict we'll witness a significant transformation rather than outright disappearance. Many gas stations, particularly those operated by major chains like Petro-Canada, will likely convert portions of their facilities into EV charging hubs, possibly adding coffee shops and lounges since charging takes considerably longer than refueling. However, stations in rural and northern communities may struggle financially as the customer base gradually shrinks. As for mechanics, the profession will undergo a substantial evolution. Traditional skills like engine repair and transmission work will become less relevant, while expertise in battery diagnostics, software systems, and electrical components will be in high demand. Community colleges across Canada will probably need to overhaul their automotive programs accordingly. This transition will undoubtedly create both challenges and exciting new career opportunities.
The proliferation of electric vehicles across Canada will, in my estimation, trigger a profound and multifaceted transformation of both the fuel station and automotive repair industries, though the trajectory will vary considerably depending on geography and adaptability. For fuel stations, I anticipate a gradual but decisive bifurcation. Urban and suburban stations operated by forward-thinking companies like Petro-Canada and Canadian Tire will strategically pivot toward becoming comprehensive EV charging destinations, incorporating amenities such as Wi-Fi lounges, retail spaces, and rapid charging infrastructure to monetize the extended dwell time that battery charging necessitates. Conversely, remote and northern stations may face existential challenges, particularly in provinces like Saskatchewan and Alberta where fossil fuel dependency runs deep both economically and culturally. Regarding the mechanic profession, I foresee an equally dramatic realignment of skills and specializations. The demand for conventional combustion engine expertise will steadily decline, while proficiency in battery technology, regenerative braking systems, and onboard computer diagnostics will become paramount. Canadian polytechnics and trade schools will inevitably need to redesign their curricula to reflect this reality, and mechanics who proactively upskill will find themselves exceptionally well positioned in a rapidly evolving marketplace.
Compare the two job offers and persuade your sister which one she should accept and why. Begin speaking now.
I think you should take the startup job in Kitchener-Waterloo. The bank job pays more money right now, but the startup gives you stock options, which could be worth a lot later. Also, working from home saves you time and money on commuting in Toronto. The cost of living in Kitchener-Waterloo is cheaper too, so your money goes further. The flexible hours are great for your lifestyle. I really believe this is the better choice for your future career growth.
I'd strongly recommend you consider the startup position in Kitchener-Waterloo. While the bank job in Toronto offers a higher base salary, the startup provides stock options that could become extremely valuable as the company grows. Moreover, remote work eliminates the stressful and expensive commute that Toronto is known for. The cost of living in the Kitchener-Waterloo region is significantly lower, meaning your take-home pay stretches further. Additionally, flexible hours would allow you to maintain a healthier work-life balance. The tech sector in Canada is booming right now, and getting in early at a startup positions you for leadership opportunities down the road. I genuinely think this is the smarter long-term move.
I'd wholeheartedly encourage you to accept the startup role in Kitchener-Waterloo, and I have several compelling reasons. Although the bank position in Toronto comes with a more attractive base salary, you need to consider the full picture. Toronto's cost of living, particularly housing and transit, would significantly erode that salary advantage. The startup stock options represent a potentially transformative financial opportunity, especially given Canada's thriving tech ecosystem centered around the Waterloo corridor. Furthermore, remote work isn't merely a convenience, it fundamentally enhances your quality of life by eliminating grueling commutes and giving you autonomy over your schedule. From a career trajectory standpoint, startups offer accelerated growth where you'd gain cross-functional experience far more quickly than in a hierarchical corporate environment. The flexibility also positions you well should you decide to pursue further education. Honestly, considering where the Canadian job market is heading, this opportunity is simply too promising to pass up.
What would you do and say to deal with this difficult situation? Begin speaking now.
I would talk to Mark privately after the meeting. I would say, Mark, I noticed you presented my proposal without mentioning my contribution. I worked very hard on that project and I feel upset about it. If he doesn't apologize or fix the situation, I would speak to my manager. I would bring my original documents and emails to show that the work is mine. I want to be fair, but I also need to protect my reputation at the company.
First, I would approach Mark privately to address this calmly and professionally. I'd say something like, Mark, I want to discuss what happened in the meeting. That proposal was something I developed independently, and I was quite surprised to see it presented without any acknowledgement of my work. I'd appreciate it if you could clarify this with our manager. If Mark is uncooperative, I would then schedule a meeting with my manager directly. I'd bring supporting evidence, emails, drafts, and file timestamps that clearly demonstrate my authorship. I'd frame it constructively, focusing on transparency and proper credit rather than blame. Maintaining a professional relationship is important to me, but so is ensuring my contributions are recognized fairly.
I'd handle this situation with a measured, two-pronged approach. Initially, I would have a candid one-on-one conversation with Mark in a neutral setting, perhaps over coffee in the office kitchen. I'd say, "Mark, I value our working relationship, but I need to address something that's been bothering me. The proposal you presented yesterday was my original work, and having it attributed solely to you was both disheartening and unfair. I'd like us to find a way to set the record straight with our manager." I'd remain composed and avoid being accusatory, giving him an opportunity to explain or rectify the situation voluntarily. However, if Mark dismisses my concerns or becomes defensive, I would escalate the matter professionally. I'd request a private meeting with my manager, presenting a documented timeline, including original drafts, email threads, and version histories that unequivocally establishes my authorship. I'd frame the discussion around workplace integrity and collaboration rather than personal conflict. Many Canadian companies have policies addressing intellectual credit, and I wouldn't hesitate to reference those guidelines if necessary.
What is your opinion on whether post-secondary education in Canada should be free, and why? Begin speaking now.
In my opinion, post-secondary education in Canada should be free. Many young Canadians graduate with a lot of student debt, and this makes it hard for them to buy homes or start families. If education were free, more people could attend university or college regardless of their family's income. This would create a more equal society. Some people worry about the cost to taxpayers, but I believe an educated population helps the economy grow. Countries like Germany already offer free education, and it works well for them.
I firmly believe that post-secondary education in Canada should be free for citizens and permanent residents. The current system creates significant financial barriers that disproportionately affect lower-income families and Indigenous communities, deepening existing inequalities. Many graduates carry tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt, which delays major life milestones such as homeownership and starting businesses. A publicly funded education system would level the playing field and ensure that talent, not wealth, determines who accesses higher learning. Critics argue this would place an unsustainable burden on taxpayers. However, the long-term economic returns of a highly educated workforce far outweigh the initial investment. Countries such as Norway and Germany have demonstrated that free education models are viable and produce strong economic outcomes. Canada has the resources and the values to make this a reality.
I hold the strong conviction that making post-secondary education free in Canada would be a transformative and fundamentally equitable policy decision. Our current system perpetuates a troubling cycle whereby students from lower-income backgrounds, including disproportionate numbers of Indigenous and newcomer Canadians, are either priced out of higher education entirely or saddled with crippling debt that constrains their economic participation for decades. This is antithetical to the values of inclusivity and equal opportunity that Canada prides itself on. From an economic standpoint, the investment is sound. Studies consistently demonstrate that every dollar spent on post-secondary education yields substantial returns through higher tax revenues, increased innovation, and reduced reliance on social assistance programs. Nations like Finland, Norway, and Germany have implemented free tuition models with remarkable success, experiencing neither the budgetary catastrophes nor the quality declines that skeptics predict. Admittedly, the transition would require thoughtful fiscal planning, potentially through progressive taxation or reallocation of existing budgets, but these are logistical challenges, not insurmountable obstacles. Ultimately, education is a public good, and treating it as such would strengthen Canada's competitiveness, social cohesion, and democratic vitality for generations to come.
Describe what you see and experience during this unusual event in your neighborhood. Begin speaking now.
It was a normal Saturday morning in my neighborhood in Halifax. I was walking my dog when I saw a big crowd on Maple Street. There were cameras, bright lights, and security guards everywhere. Then I noticed Ryan Gosling standing in front of a small blue house, talking to an elderly woman. People were taking photos and some neighbors were very excited. A news reporter was interviewing people nearby. It was very surprising because nothing like this ever happens in our quiet neighborhood. It was a really memorable morning.
Last Saturday morning started like any other in my quiet Halifax neighborhood, until I turned the corner onto Elm Crescent and found myself in the middle of an extraordinary scene. A professional film crew had set up cameras and lighting equipment along the sidewalk, and several security personnel were managing a growing crowd of excited residents. At the center of it all stood Ryan Gosling, the famous Canadian actor, standing in front of a modest Victorian-era house that apparently was his childhood home. He was chatting warmly with an elderly neighbor who seemed absolutely thrilled. Children were pressing forward for autographs while parents snapped photos on their phones. A CBC reporter was conducting interviews with starstruck onlookers. The whole atmosphere was electric. Our typically sleepy street had been completely transformed into a spectacle of celebrity excitement.
What began as an utterly unremarkable Saturday morning stroll through my Halifax neighborhood quickly became the most surreal experience I've had in years. As I rounded the corner onto Birchwood Lane with my coffee in hand, I was met with a scene that looked like it belonged on a movie set, which, in a sense, it was. An entire production crew had descended upon our usually tranquil street, complete with boom microphones, professional lighting rigs, and a fleet of black SUVs flanked by stern-looking security personnel. The reason for this extraordinary commotion was none other than Ryan Gosling, who had apparently returned to visit the modest clapboard house where he'd spent part of his childhood. He stood on the front porch, visibly moved, speaking with Mrs. Chicken, the 90-year-old woman who'd lived next door for decades and reportedly remembered him as a boy. The crowd was a fascinating mix, teenagers trembling with excitement, longtime residents beaming with neighborhood pride, and a CBC Atlantic crew capturing every moment. What struck me most was Gosling's genuine warmth. He took time to sign autographs, pose for selfies, and even pet a neighbor's golden retriever. For one extraordinary morning, our little corner of Halifax felt like the center of the universe.
Before you go, don't forget to like this video, share it with other test takers, and subscribe so you never miss your daily IELTS and CELPIP tests. Drop your score in the comments. Your name could be featured in our monthly Achievers newsletter. Stay consistent, stay focused, and keep leveling up with Master Prep.